यसो हेर्नुस् Anandji, you can start now.
Okay, we are almost 7 minutes behind the schedule. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the American Society of Nepalese Engineers web series session 1. So the first thing I want to start with introducing the society and its activities. So I will invite Thakur Dakal to introduce the society.
Okay, thank you, Anandji. Thank you, everyone who is attending this session, web series session 1 in the Zoom, as well as watching it on live stream on Facebook page. I would like to welcome on our very first web series. We'll do it every month if possible. We will schedule and let you know, and we'll have a lot of good programs coming on. Also, American Society of Nepalese Engineers, it was established in 2007. Now we have done a lot of things since the society was established. Currently, we have 4 very active running programs. This one, web series, is the one which we regularly broadcast every month, and you will have opportunity to get continuing education credit if you need to for engineering professionals, and also a lot of development research and panel discussion related to engineering, Nepal's development, and so forth. We also have, we are running Merit Award and GSRF Graduate Research Fellowship Program. Students in studying in Nepal, universities in Nepal, undergrad student, we distribute at least 1 Merit Award from each university and 1 GSRF for the research student in Nepal. We have also launched advising program, student advising program. This program is especially focusing and encouraging research in Nepal related to Nepal's development, technology, and that helps development of Nepal. So currently we have started a advising program in Institute of Engineering, Pusker campus. And we have a lot of interested volunteers to support this advising program. We have advisors who have signed up, more than like 40 people interested to help. So that program is also running. This is being run by our coordinator, Narayan Pokhrel. If you have any questions, please let us know. We can help. Also, there is another program we are running is research grant. We started this year. We asked for proposals for research grant. We got more than 25 very good proposals. And among them, our volunteers reviewed, and we are granting award, research grant award for 6 proposals, very good 6 proposals, and that is being launched right now. Another thing we do every year is conference, engineering conference. This is American Society of Nepalese Engineers. Since it was started, we have every year annual conference. We have done about 14 before, and this year we'll be doing 15th annual conference. It is going to be held in June 11 and 12. Maybe later on, Sureji will provide more specific in this. Also, society has 4 chapters: Chicago, DC chapter, New York chapter, and Houston chapter. New York chapter was recently established this year, and we have a lot of enthusiasm in the society, and we are planning to form other more chapters. So this is it for the updates today, and also this is you will get professional development hour of 1 hour credit. Please stay in Zoom. If you stay in Zoom, you will get credit. If you are in Facebook, you will not get. So please, if you wanted to get continuing education class, please log in the Zoom. Login have been provided in Facebook page. That's on American Society of Nepalese Engineers Facebook page, as well as some of our members, like I have shared in my profile also, you can get it from there. So with that, I would like to give back it to Anandji. Anandji, now it is yours.
Yeah, before we start and invite our speaker, I would like to invite Surya Thapa to make some announcement. Suryaji.
हजुर सबैलाई नमस्ते स्पेशल थ्याङ्क्स टु आनन्दजी एन्ड पुष्करजी यो फर्स्ट वेब सिरिजमा चाहिँ एक्सेप्ट गरेर हाम्रो इन्टरनेटले चाहिँ त्यति एक्सर्साइज हुन सकेन त्यसैले छोटो नोटिसमा पनि हामीहरू 17-18 जना मान्छेहरू लाइभले हेरिरहेछन् द्याट्स ग्रेट हाम्रो एनाउन्समेन्टमा चाहिँ अब रिसेन्टली अब हाम्रो आनन्दजीले एक्सर्साइज गरेर राख्नु भएको छ कन्फरेन्सको लागि हाम्रो यसपालिको कन्फरेन्स पनि वेब हुँदैछ लास्ट 2 कन्फरेन्स जस्तै यसपालि पनि वेब हुँदैछ जुन 11 and 12 everybody should mark their calendar for June 11 and 12 it is going to be the online in a Zoom pretty much membership हाम्रो अर्गनाइजेसनको membership renew चाहिँ December 31st मा चाहिँ yearly renew गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ त्यसैले यो चाहिँ यस अब चाहिँ अब मेम्बरशिप रिन्यू गर्ने टाइम भइरहेको छ अहिले नयाँ मेम्बरशिपमा चाहिँ नयाँ हाम्रो फीहरू लिस्टेड छ र हामीले चाहिँ फी चाहिँ लामो समयदेखि चाहिँ स्टडी गरेर अहिले चाहिँ नयाँ फी हामीले यही जनवरी 1st बाट चाहिँ सुरु गरेर राखेका छौं स्टुडेन्टको लागि चाहिँ $5 जनरल मेम्बरको लागि 25 र लाइफ मेम्बरको लागि 200 तपाईहरु कसैको चाहिँ मेम्बरशिप चाहिँ अब रिन्यू गर्नुपर्ने छ भने गएर वेबसाइटमा गएर शैलेशसित रिन्यू गर्न सक्नुहुन्छ यदि कुनै प्रब्लम भयो भने you can talk to me or you can send me email or ठाकुरजी मदनजी मंगलजी जो कोहीलाई पनि कन्ट्याक्ट गर्न सक्नुहुन्छ हामी जो कोहीले पनि तपाईलाई चाहिँ शैलेशसँग हेल्प गर्न सक्छौं रिन्यू गर्नको लागि अर्को चाहिँ अब डोनेसन र टी-शर्ट को बारेमा चाहिँ मंगलजी के भन्नुहुन्छ तपाई के इनपुट दिनुस् न त त्यसमा
Sure. Namaste everyone. A very good morning. म एउटा सानो एनाउन्समेन्ट मेरो त्यो अहिले हाम्रो सोसाइटीको टी-शर्ट प्रिपरेसनमा लागिरहेका छौं हाम्रो सोसाइटीको लोगो सहितको टी-शर्ट चाहिँ मोस्ट प्रोबेबली फेब्रुअरी इनमा कम्प्लिट भएर हामीले 150 वटा टी-शर्टहरु प्रिपरेसनमा छ त्यो टी-शर्ट चाहिँ हामीले प्रोडक्सनमा अथवा डेलिभरी आइसकेपछि चाहिँ मेम्बरहरुलाई कसरी बाँड्ने या यो सर्टेन फी राखेर हामीले चाहिँ त्यो बाँड्ने प्लान बनाएको छौं छिटै नै त्यो प्रोडक्ट हातमा परेपछि सूर्यजी मार्फत हाम्रो सोसाइटीले सबै मेम्बरलाई प्राइस र डेलिभरी कसरी गर्ने भन्ने कुराको इन्फर्म गर्छ अर्को एनाउन्समेन्ट चाहिँ हामीले यो अहिले रिसेन्टली रिसर्च ग्रान्टको लागि चाहिँ हामीले डोनेसनहरु चाहिँ एनाउन्स गरेका छौं अहिले धेरै जना लगभग 20 जना जतिले डोनेसन गरिसकेका छ त्यो डोनेसनबाट चाहिँ नेपालमा एकदमै राम्रो प्रपोजल रिसर्च गर्न चाहनेहरुलाई अलिकति बढी सहयोग गर्न सकिन्छ कि भन्ने हेतुले गरे हो if anyone interested to donate it's open अथवा हाम्रो वेबसाइटमा अथवा हाम्रो ठाकुरजी मार्फत इन्फर्मेसनहरु पठाइरहेको छ त्यसमा तपाईहरुको पार्टिसिपेसन इज भेरी वेलकम थ्यांक यू त्यही दुईटा announcement हो
Okay, thank you, Suryaji and Mangalji, for the information, and these are the real important things that we need to also carry out. Before we jump into the presentation, I want to cover some of the logistics. So we will definitely have the presentation, and that is gonna be followed by Q&A session. And at the end, speaker also gonna give us some snapshot as a final takeaways. Please join via Zoom if you wanna request for professional development hours. You can get 1 hour for attending today's session. Audience, you can post your questions anytime on the chat box, or if you want to ask the question, in that case, you can raise your hand during the Q&A session. With that, I would like to introduce our speaker. For today's speaker, we have Dr. Pusker Regmi. Dr. Regmi is a process engineer, wastewater innovation leader with Brown and Cardwell, a licensed professional engineer in Virginia. Pusker leads applied research and implementation of emerging biological nutrient removal technologies. While working at Hampton Roads and Sanitation District, he invented AVN for carbon efficient nitrogen removal. He is a founding member of the American Nepal Clean Water Foundation and has contributed to develop Nepali national standard for domestic wastewater effluent. So today's title of the presentation is Emerging Trends of the Circular Economy enabled by Resource Recovery from Wastewater. With that, I welcome Dr. Pusker and hand over to him my screen. Dr. Pusker, please start your presentation. Thank you.
पुष्कर जी तपाईं म्युटमा हुनुहुन्छ
Okay. Thank you so much, Anandji, for a kind introduction. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
If you
Okay,
can speak about it a bit, that would be great.
Okay. So for today's talk, what I was gonna do is talk about like wastewater, and the target of my presentation today is to change your perspective on wastewater. We should not see wastewater as waste. We should see it as resource. And with the presentation, I'll talk about like several facets of wastewater treatment, resource recovery, and hopefully will change your minds at the end of the presentation that wastewater is no more waste, it's a resource, and it's used, it can be used for many, different societal changes. And that is the main target of my presentation. So this presentation is, kind of a collection of a lot of ideas. And I must acknowledge my colleagues and mentors. First off, Dr. Rajendra Bhattrai from Clean Water Strategies. Maybe he's on the call today as well. And my colleague, Bipin Pathak from DC Water. And my PhD advisor and a wastewater leader in this field, Charles Bart from Hampton Roads Sanitation District. So before I get into the technology side of things, let's start like why we care about wastewater. So these are the scenes that we have all seen in growing up in Nepal. These are still, unfortunately, the present state of affairs in Kathmandu. This is a raw wastewater, untreated, and it causes like a lot of problems. We know the waterborne diseases that it results in, which is a lot of human potential loss. A lot of people get sick and they cannot work. And there's a human toll of it. On the other side, there is aesthetics. This is unsightly, and if we want to promote ourselves as tourist nation, tourist destination, these kind of sites will not help. So at several, instances, untreated wastewater causes a lot of unwanted issues. But the point is, wastewater is not waste. It can be used for resource recovery, right? So So if you look at what happens if the wastewater does not get treated, it ends up in our water bodies. And the water bodies, which are life-giving in so many ways, become a nuisance. It smells bad, it's unsightly, and you are not getting beneficial use out of it. So this is what we want to change. And this is relevant for a lot of developing countries like Nepal. And even developed countries, there are like water bodies which get like severely stressed by a lack of treatment or nutrient enrichment. And those are the type of concepts that we'll talk about today. So here, what you see is, the state of sanitation in general. And sanitation, again, is related to like wastewater. If you do not treat your wastewater properly, it has a huge human toll. And especially this is true in developing nations. If you look at here, South Asia, our region of the world, 62% of wastewater is still not, treated with lack of sanitation for those people, 62% of people. And this must change if we want to develop these nations. It's highly critical to do so. So the other aspect of wastewater is human population and how it has exponentially grown in the last century and continues to grow in this century. Right now the total human population in the world is around like 8 billion, and those 8 billion people, they all use water, they produce wastewater, and especially in concentrated areas of the world, the cities, this is becoming more and more of an issue. Because when you put like so many people in one location, and the classic example is Kathmandu. Kathmandu's population has grown by order of magnitude in last 20, 30 years. And if you put that many people in a small location, you generate a lot of wastewater. And if you do not treat them and do not do like any beneficial things with them, it becomes an environmental disaster. So population growth is, especially in urban areas, is a huge issue when it comes to wastewater. So the current model of how we, look at resources, not just wastewater, but in general, any resources, is we get engaged in this extraction kind of a mentality. So we extract resources, we produce stuff with it, we distribute, we consume, and eventually we waste. And it ends up in our water bodies, it ends up in our landfills, and we get nothing out of it. This is a waste model, and this is a very linear type of a model, and it is highly unsustainable. And now there is a growing kind of, and you can see this in other emerging fields as well, like battery technologies, electric cars have become, a new wave of, sustainable practices now. And there is this, idea of, can we recover what we use so that we don't have to engage in exploitive extraction, activities like lithium mining and so forth, right? So in a circular economy or a circular centric, way of looking at things, what you do is you produce, you extract resources, limited resources, you produce, you distribute, you consume, and then you reuse as much as possible, you repair and recycle. And when you do this, you close the loop. There is no waste or minimum amount of waste. And that is the target even in the wastewater sector. So why this is so important? Anything that is limited in nature, which water is, this concept applies. We have to get engaged in this circular way of thinking. So if you look at this, figure here, a picture, this is the whole globe, so to speak, and the droplet here is the waters of the world, the total entire water of the world, including seawater. And if you think about like the fresh water, it's more limited, right? So only 3% of the total waters is fresh water, and within that 3% fresh water, only 2/3 of that is frozen in glaciers. So we are talking about just 1/3 of fresh water that is available for human consumption. And this is what drives the 7 billion people of the world, right? So we must get engaged in using these resources, as efficiently as possible. So the sustainability aspect of water is a huge deal, water and wastewater. This is even recognized by United Nations. If you look at the Sustainable Development Goal 6, it calls for clean water and sanitation for all. So there is this, a big recognition that if we do not take care of our water, and if we do not take care of sanitation, the world cannot move forward. We cannot develop. So, in thinking of that, the only way to provide clean water and sanitation is through sustainable practices. And this will involve, reuse, this will involve, engaging in infrastructure and, that are low cost and is available for everybody, especially in developing countries. So that brings me to the main core of the talk today, which is wastewater is a resource. And we say it's a resource, but what are the resources in it? The first one is obviously water itself. Wastewater has water, right? It's mostly water. And that water is that same, small percentage of water that is available in the world. And the fresh water is limited. And that water is, wastewater, it is groundwater, that the same water circulates through water cycle and then becomes available for doing different things. That is a very important resource, and that needs to be covered. We cannot waste it. The second one is energy, and the energy that comes in water is from the human activities. We eat food, we discharge it into our waterways, and then the water is enriched with these carbon organics, which can be used for producing energy. Carbon is energy, right? So if you think about like water, wastewater, it contains all the energy that it needs to treat itself. So doing like treatment by using external energy is not needed if we can do this properly, right? And the second thing that is highly beneficial is nutrients. All the plants and everything that we eat has a nutrient in it, and the nutrients are also essential for our own development. If you think about our like DNA and the proteins that are in the body, those are made up of nitrogen and phosphorus, and these are life-giving nutrients, and they are also present in wastewater. And the third thing is the carbon. The carbon that can be produced for energy can also be used to produce things like biopolymers, bioplastics, which are much more sustainable and can result in new waves of products which are environmentally friendly. And the last thing, in trace amounts, there are also metals, and these metals can be also recycled and can have some beneficial use. In some cases, there is also even gold that you can recover from wastewater, and gold we know is a timeless kind of a metal. It's the it can have several uses besides economic uses. So let's talk about like water. So what we mean by water recovery, wastewater. So this concept of fit for purpose is highly applicable when we look at water. Water has a different quality depending on where it is in the life cycle. So this is a representation of how the water quality changes throughout the water cycle, the way that we use it. So we take raw water, and the raw water is, I would say, like medium quality. For drinking purposes, we have to upgrade its quality. We get engaged in water treatment, where we improve the quality of water and make it safe for human consumption. Then we consume it, throughout the day. We drink water, we cook with it, we use it in the bathroom, and so forth, right? And we clean vegetables and so forth. So after the consumption, it becomes wastewater, and wastewater gets enriched, as I was mentioning before, with a lot of these components, that if not treated or not recovered, is going to cause like environmental concerns that I showed some pictures of Kathmandu, where untreated water is causing a lot of problems, right? So if you want to increase the water quality again, you need to get engaged in treatment, and there are like several treatment, and this is the area that I work mostly. We get engaged in like secondary treatment, tertiary treatment, advanced treatment, depending on what type of use we want to have with this, effluent, wastewater effluent, right? So, but even with secondary treatment and some level of tertiary treatment, the water can be used for different purposes. Not drinking water, but you can use it to for irrigation. You can have different uses. So this idea of treatment based on what purpose it's going to serve is a very important concept in water sector. It drives like how much investment that you have to make to improve the water quality and so forth. So when talking about this idea of like reusing water, what you can see here is we've been doing this all the time, whether we want it or not, this happens all the time. So what happens is if you have a river, and if you think about rivers of the world, they pass through like a lot of cities, where there is like a river, there is a city mostly, right? If you think about like, Ganga in India, or if you think about Danube in Europe, there are several cities, here in Mississippi, there are several cities that are built around waterways and rivers mostly, right? So what happens is you take drinking water from the river, and then you upgrade its quality and make it drinking water, and the city and its population are going to use it. And then you generate wastewater. In developed countries, you treat them, and then you send it back to the river. And the same river flows to the downstream city, and the downstream city uses the water from the river again. The cycle continues. So this is a kind of an informal way of reusing water, and this happens all the time. So what we are trying to do in the industry right now is do some of this more intentionally and more with more control. So that brings me to the idea of direct potable reuse. So the one that I showed you is more like indirect potable reuse, but you can do this directly as well. And the way that is done is the urban environment uses water, wastewater is produced, and then the wastewater is treated in these conventional treatment plants. But after the conventional waste treatment plants, what you do is you to increase its water quality, you do advanced water treatment. And here, advanced technologies like reverse osmosis, UV disinfection is used so that it's 100% safe for human consumption. And if you want to do direct reuse, then you don't put it back to environmental buffers. You directly send it to water treatment plant to get in the drinking water supply, or you directly send a water line to urban water distribution system. So by doing this, you are closing the loop on water. You used it, you treated it, you increased the quality, and then you again consumed it. So this is the circular kind of a consumption. There is no waste in this model. And this is what is, unfortunately or fortunately, is going to be the future for a lot of, water stressed cities in the world. Think about the western part of the United States, California, and so forth, where increasingly fresh water is getting stressed. And the question that you may all have is, is this portable reuse safe? Can this be done safely? Is there like any danger for like human life? And does it cause like long-term kind of side effects and so forth? Unfortunately, on that, we have a good news. This practice of direct portable reuse has been done for more than 50 years now. We have a classic example from Windhoek, Namibia. They have been doing this, portable reuse since 1968. It's not a village. We're talking about a small city, and the results are clear. There is no adverse human health impact because of direct potable reuse. And this is good news. Like this is what's gonna be instrumental in solving some of the water crisis that is impending due to climate change and other stress factors. And when we talk about like water reuse, sometimes we are not exposed to these ideas, right? But you may be surprised that one of the water reuse or recycling could be happening near to you. So I live in Maryland, close to Washington, D.C., and in the Northern Virginia area, we've been doing this since 1978. So this is not direct potable reuse, but this is the environmental buffer concept, where the wastewater treatment plant is discharging its effluent into Occoquan Reservoir, which is a man-made kind of a lake reservoir for water treatment and distribution. And it's discharging into that, and the water treatment plant is taking its source water as the source water, the same reservoir. So this has been going on for a lot of time. And there are also like other examples of it. Loudoun County is another one where surface water augmentation, the same concept is used. And then there are like places like Big Spring in Texas, where the direct potable reuse, exactly the same concept as the Windhoek, Namibia example of direct potable reuse that is happening since 2013. So this is closer to home now. This is not an alien concept. This is not like something to be scared of. This is everywhere. It's safe. It's proven, and it's just a matter of people accepting it. And it will increasingly become more of a solution as we move forward. So here's the example of the indirect potable reuse. You have is a wastewater treatment plant. The effluent gets treated in advanced water treatment plant type of infrastructure, improving the water quality. It's almost like at this stage, is ready for potable reuse. The quality is the same as what you would produce for potable reuse, but to make, if you don't have to go to like potable reuse, idea would be to send it to the reservoir, and then with the environmental buffer, you go to water treatment, right? This is what is being practiced in some locations. The Northern Virginia example, Gwinnett County, which is one of the most prominent counties in Atlanta area, also practices this. And Singapore, being an island nation with limited water resources, also gets engaged in this type of activities. The other concept is the same idea with wastewater and upgrading the water quality, but as opposed to sending it to the surface water, you are discharging it into the aquifer or the groundwater system. And so again, like this water is going to stay in the groundwater depending on where you put it in, or in some cases, like even hundreds of years. And eventually, when the population centers are ready to use that, they can take it out from the groundwater reserves or aquifers, right? And this is a huge initiative in the Los Angeles area, Orange County area. They've been already doing this with a lot of success, and this is what they are counting on to combat some of the water stresses of the future. So the other aspect, that I want to talk about a little bit is the Eastern Virginia example, and this is the Hampton Roads area, and there is a utility called Hampton Roads Sanitation District. I spent 3 to 4 years in this utility, working as a PhD student doing research. So I'm pretty familiar with the area because I lived there, and I saw like firsthand some of the consequences of climate change and what happens when we have, aquifer, water levels in the groundwater that goes down, and so forth. So the model of treatment, again, already talked about how it gets treated. Here, a lot of drinking water comes from, and drinking water and useful water comes from groundwater. So we tap into the aquifer, the water reserves below the ground. We use it, And the utility, in this case, Hampton Roads Sanitation District, has 13, 14, wastewater treatment plants throughout the area. They treat the wastewater, and in most cases, they discharge it to ocean. And there is, this is not the most beneficial use of, treating the water, because what you are doing is you're sending decent quality water into the ocean, as opposed to sending it back to the aquifer. You're not closing the loop. You are making it go to the ocean. And the other downside of doing that is not only you are sending, a medium quality water to the ocean, but also you're sending some of the nutrients to the ocean. And this was a huge, problem. If you go back like decades, the area there is Chesapeake Bay, which is one of the most prominent, bay in terms of and economic activities. And the nutrient, that was sent to Chesapeake Bay was causing a lot of issues. So not only you are losing water from your closed loop system, but you are also sending some of these nutrients into the bay. And the bay was getting, the quality of bay was getting bad. Fish life was not doing well. There was like algae bloom and so forth. So the whole practice needed some, rethinking. And so if you look at, the issues that I just was mentioning, the drawing of the groundwater, and in Virginia, they have like in this part of the Virginia, they have like 177 permitted groundwater wells, and like 200,000 unpermitted wells that are used by, for domestic use. And this is a huge amount of water that people are drawing for beneficial use every day. And if we look at, the groundwater levels, the groundwater levels are dropping in this part of Virginia, Hampton Roads area. In last 100 years or so, it has gone down by 50 meters. This is a huge number, right? And the consequence of, lowering the groundwater is severe. So if you think about like Hampton Roads area, it's a number at risk besides New Orleans in terms of sea level rise. There is like 50% of the sea level rise, it seems like, is caused by land subsidence. And land subsidence is nothing but groundwater levels going down, and there is this compaction of land that is happening, which causes your land to go down. So when land around you goes down and the sea is rising because of melting ice and whatnot, what's going to happen? You'll have a compounding effect of sea level rise. And I lived in Norfolk for many years, and I saw this firsthand. Even if there is like 2-hour rain, the city used to get like flooded. All the storm water, used to start like overflowing, and it was already, really bad. And this will continue to get worse if we don't do anything about it. And so with that kind of a backdrop, what Hampton Road Sanitation District decided is to close this loop. So again, you, as opposed to sending the effluent from the wastewater treatment to ocean, now what they are going to do, and this is already the work that is happening, they are in the process of building these advanced water treatment plants. And the idea is to clean the effluent of wastewater, make it better, send it to the aquifer, increase the groundwater levels, and close the cycle. So this is the concept that is already happening around us. And this seems like the way forward for the entire, kind of all the places where this type of issues are happening. So this model is highly recognized as being very sustainable, and a lot of people are behind this concept. And just to give you a landscape of the advanced water treatment that I was talking about. So you take the wastewater and then you engage in improving the water quality of it. And there are like already proven, highly proven technologies to do this. There is no question in that. The water quality coming out of this is of highest quality. There is no pathogens. There is no, nothing in it that is, kind of jeopardizes human health. Reverse is one of them, nanofiltration, and even the combination of granular activated carbon and granular biologically active and granular activated carbon. Both of them, when they are combined, they can produce high quality waters that is safe for human consumption. So we know how to do this. So that brings me to, so we talked about water and why water is important, and from many different ways, right? For human consumption through chains and flooding in the low-lying cities, all of that, right? So water is important, but nutrient is also very important. So the nutrient story, I think, starts from our ability to create synthetic nitrogen. So this probably is one of the biggest invention, one of the most underrated, inventions of the last century in my mind. Because without this, I don't think we could have been 8 billion people right now. We'd be limited by nitrogen. So nitrogen that is fixed in the natural environment, is a small portion of what we use to fertilize our crops and get food out of it, right? So this, chemical, physical type of a process can take like nitrogen from the atmosphere. And we all know that most of the atmosphere is nitrogen, almost like 79% of it. And we can convert that into ammonia. As ammonia is what gives life, the plant life, the fuel to grow, right? So this was done. I think it was like 1920s, and this rapidly changed the human course, and it's one of the biggest inventions I can think of. But the issue is, this process was so efficient and so economical in general. We stopped like hearing about fertilizers that much. It was cheap, even if you think about like if you have some memories back from Nepal, urea and so forth, it's relatively affordable. So the use of it exponentially grew. With it, food production also grew, but we were indiscriminate in its use. We overused it in some cases. So the fertilizer consumption went up. Societies started to grow. The food shortages or like limitations on food growth in at least slightly more developed countries almost altogether vanished, and as a society we were progressing. The issue is this over kind of use of fertilizers can cause like some of the environmental problems. So if you use fertilizers just enough to grow crops and there is no waste, you'll be okay. But if you are dumping a lot of fertilizers in your agricultural field or even your house lawn and anything like that, the nutrient eventually ends up water body near you. So this is the example of one of the algal blooms that happen because of the same concept, same ideas, over enrichment of nutrients in the water body causing algal bloom. And the algal bloom, although this is kind of a funny looking picture and people are puzzled by it, but it can be dangerous. Algal bloom can severely limit the growth of or like production of fish life, and the water quality degrades. There is lack of oxygen eventually when the algae dies, and it becomes like unsightly, and there are a lot of issues with it. So this is not good. The nutrients which are life-giving, we are wasting it in water bodies, and it's creating like nuisance. So this needs to be changed, right? And so that brings me to another nutrient along with like nitrogen, which is phosphorus. And wastewater has plenty of nitrogen and phosphorus. Both of them are important. And I think like phosphorus can be even more important. So the idea of, like this improving water quality and doing wastewater treatment in developed countries is nothing new. We've been doing this for more than 100 years. And there are like a lot of these sophisticated processes based on biology and natural systems that can be used to treat wastewater, right? And this has been refined over time, and these are well established, I would say. And the field that I work on, I just introduce a little bit of what I do also. is advanced nutrient removal. Here we're talking about, I mentioned that we use biology and natural systems to treat our wastewaters, especially removing nitrogen, because we know if not treated, nitrogen can end up in your water bodies and cause all those sorts of like nuisance, right? So nutrient removal is extremely important from wastewater. And for the longest time, we've been using processes and concepts that are more what do you call that, energy and resource intensive. And my job, a day-to-day job, is to make this like more sustainable. How can we remove and recover nutrients from wastewater so that we can do something beneficial with it? At the same time, how can we limit nutrients to a very low level in the wastewater effluents? And this is highly relevant in the area that I live, which is Washington, DC metro area. And here, all the treatment plants, DC Water and WSSC, in the Maryland side, all of these treatment plants engage in something called, enhanced nutrient removal. So their mandate is to take out as much as nutrient as possible. And this is done to save Chesapeake Bay, basically. Chesapeake Bay is national treasure. And Obama, claimed that in 22, I think. It provides a lot of economic benefits for this area, and we must do this. This is not optional. And states that discharge into this Chesapeake Bay, like Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, Pennsylvania, all these they engage in this type of activity. And my job is to make sure that we can do this sustainably. By using less resources, less chemicals, less energy, and have a minimal economic and environmental impact on our society. So that brings me to one of the projects that I fondly worked in Australia, Melbourne. And Melbourne City, if you look at this, is a bustling, growing city of around like 4 million people in the metro area, I think. And it has this, bay called Port Phillip Bay. So Chesapeake Bay is quite important for the Washington, DC area, like Virginia, Maryland, things like that. And the Port Phillip Bay is similarly very important to Victoria and Melbourne City itself. And with this growing population in Melbourne, they were facing the similar issues. They were, the bay was getting enriched with nutrients. The quality of water was going down. The fish life started to suffer, and the trend continues. It seems like it will be a big environmental kind of issue in the future. So this kind of a picture right now in the screen shows you some of the natural kind of systems, almost hybrid natural and human-made systems that they use to treat wastewater. And to be honest, they do a pretty good job. They use these so-called anaerobic lagoons for treating the wastewater. And when they use this anaerobic process, they end up like producing biogas. So the biogas we all know, can be converted to electricity. And that electricity powers some of the more advanced wastewater systems they have in the process. So the idea now is, hey, we're doing a good job utilizing some of the carbon side of things within the wastewater, but the bay is getting stressed with nutrients. So can we remove, the nutrients from the wastewater so that in an economical way and in an efficient way, sustainable way, so that we keep this sustainability theme, going in Melbourne, right? So with that, we were engaged in, some of the more advanced shortcut in biology type of systems, in piloting and coming up with new processes. I'm happy to report this has been going on for like 5-6 years. We did a pilot study, as you can see on the right here, 40,000 gallons per day kind of a pilot study. And, we demonstrated a low cost, efficient process for removing nitrogen here. And because of the success of this pilot, the Melbourne Water has now decided to build full-blown wastewater treatment plants on these concepts. And I feel highly privileged to participate and provide my technical guidance and to develop this type of process. So it's a lot of these systems that we work on ends up uplifting environmental concerns. It directly helps with human life around the cities, and it makes everything more sustainable. So it's very rewarding in that regard. So then let's talk about, I talked about nutrient removal, which is extremely important by itself, but nutrient recovery is even better, in most cases, because of the closing the loop aspects, right? We are not wasting, we are using it. So I briefly talked about nitrogen and how it's created and how it has helped us grow more crops, sustain like a lot of human population and so forth. But if you think about like phosphorus, it's even more important. Phosphorus is limited resource, just like oil or crude oil, right? We are using it and it's depleting over time. And the process that is used to get phosphorus is highly industrialized process, and it is highly wasteful at the same time. And phosphorus is, we are consuming so much of phosphorus, and we are not recovering any of that. It seems like if we don't do anything, we will deplete all the phosphate resource in the world by 2100. And this is not a good news. Because if you consume if you mine more phosphorus, the quality of phosphorus gets worse and worse. The high quality phosphorus is easy to mine, and then now you have to go to low quality phosphorus. And those reserves have more of these byproducts, like metal byproducts, and they create more environmental disaster on their own. So this vicious cycle of not recovering any phosphorus, consuming it, and creating so many unintended kind of consequences must stop. And we can stop that. And some of the wastewater recovery concepts can help with this, right? So this is a very exciting field that is emerging in our industry right now. And I feel like this will change a lot of things. So peak phosphorus is this concept similar to the peak oil, right? There is no man-made alternative to phosphorus. So everything that we do, it needs to come from nature, and it's limited. So we have to, start looking at concepts of recycling and not wasting any of it, right? So if you look at what happens when there is what happens to the food security if the supply chain of phosphorus gets stressed. So if you think about the mining activity and so forth, over time it's going to get more expensive, because the process that is needed to recover, get phosphorus from mines is going to be more energy intensive. It's going to be more intensive, and so the cost is going to go up, right? Whereas the production based on the location of phosphorus and the quality is going to go down, right? So this is the supply and demand, and the increasing price of phosphorus will have a huge impact on overall food production of the world, right? So we need to take care of this. And the other, kind of a sad situation, if we look at phosphorus, is where it's located. Where are these mines? So if you look at the biggest concentration of phosphorus, it's in Western Sahara, the Sahara Desert, that is, and Morocco. 75% of it is in that region. And if you look at it in the United States, it's only 2%. And if you look at, it's some in China, Russia, but in general, these are not the most stable parts of the world, right? So to rely on phosphorus mines that is in Morocco or West Sahara is not ideal for any of these nations, right? There could be political issues, geopolitics. There could be any of these number of issues can disrupt the whole food production throughout the world. So we must engage because of this as well in sustainable practices. So again, the idea is to produce wastewater. The wastewater gets treated, nutrients get recycled. It's used for agriculture. Food is produced, human consume it, and we close the loop. And this is the dream, right? This is what we and it's not only dream, I would say. We know how to do this. There is a lot of there is a lot of steps to be taken and a lot of education when it comes to people understanding these concepts, politicians also getting behind these ideas, and as a society, just demanding that, hey, we need to do more and we need to be more sustainable. We know how to do these. These are highly beneficial ways of, creating cities and, developing our society in general, right? So we must engage in these activities and we know how to do it. So, with this phosphorus recovery concept, as I mentioned, we already know how to do it, is getting actually better, So the industrial processes, like I'm showing here, one of the examples, it's called like wastewater process, just one of the many examples of this type of technology. Can recover, struvite, which is a phosphate mineral, but also at the same time, it captures some of the ammonia. So these crystals, really good looking fertilizers, nice pellets, can be used as a slow release fertilizer in your lawn. It can be used in agriculture. And this is a very highly sustainable practice that we can do already. So phosphorus recovery ideas are gaining traction, and it seems like there is nothing gonna stop it, right? And I'm glad to see a lot of utilities, cities getting interested in these in general. So this same technology was demonstrated in world's largest wastewater treatment plant in Chicago. And again, highly established kind of a concept. We know how to do this, but getting the recognition or demonstration in the world's largest wastewater treatment plant just gives us like even more credibility. So yeah, all these things are pointing towards highly sustainable future for us, and I'm quite excited about it. So then we move to the carbon side of things. So I talked about water, I talked about nutrients, and now let's talk about carbon, right? And carbon, again, you can think of carbon as energy to a certain extent. Carbon can be converted to energy, right? So, but carbon can also be converted to a lot of other things. This kind of a slide shows you how carbon can be captured from wastewater. Even the process of simply doing wastewater treatment is going to produce biosolids. Biosolids, can be digested to produce methane, and methane can be used to produce electricity. You can produce volatile fatty acids if you do some sort of like anaerobic treatment. You can completely burn or like incinerate that sludge, biosolids, to produce heat. So there are like so many ways to use the carbon that is captured in the wastewater. But unfortunately, for the longest time, the best use that we could do was landfill the biosolids from wastewater treatment. So you create biosolids, you do not do anything beneficial with it, and then you landfill it. And the problem with landfilling of biosolids, it does not have any beneficial use, but it is an environmental disaster, because slowly that biosolids is going to release methane, and methane is greenhouse gas, right? So we are not getting anything beneficial out of it, but we are polluting our environment with it, right? So that was the sad state of affairs for the longest time. But now there is a growing recognition that, hey, we cannot do that. These biosolids or this type of precursors to materials are highly beneficial. We should be doing something more meaningful and useful with them, right? So the ideas of biofuels, microbial electrolysis cells, cellulose, PHA, which can be precursors to bioplastics, all of these things are gaining traction because of that. We can't simply landfill waste from wastewater treatment. We should be doing something better with it, right? So one of the easiest thing, or the well understood things people did for a long time, is biosolids treatment with anaerobic digestion. And you can think of this process as exactly the same way you know the gobar gas, ideas that we have used in Nepal for many, many years, right? Same idea, the bio anaerobically digested, simple process of microbial degradation. Biogas is produced, which is methane, mostly methane. And that methane, if you put generators and turbines, you can produce electricity. And electricity can be used, this green electricity or green energy can be used to do the treatment. And in some cases, it can also be sent to the grid if you have surplus, right? So the idea is, nothing technically difficult. It can be done, and it has been done. DC Water engages in this in our area, and they produce, a significant amount of electricity just by biogas, biosolids treatment in anaerobic digestion. But it gets even better. So in a lot of cases, these digesters, are designed with extra capacity and for the future growth. So in that case, what they can do is they can take some of the food waste that is created by restaurants or other commercial activities, and you can use that food waste to, in these digesters to produce more gas, right? Not only you are treating the solids from wastewater, now you are treating or creating biogas with food waste around the area. And this is fantastic, right? Again, food waste, if you do not recover like biogas, is simply waste. It ends up in the landfill. And as I mentioned earlier, food waste can also produce methane slowly, right? Which is a greenhouse gas. So you can, completely turn that around and make beneficial use and get like more biogas doing this type of approach. And this food waste, this is something called like co-digestion, and this has been used in several cities, even in San Francisco Bay Area. This approach has been used to create like more electricity than the wastewater treatment can use, and it is sent to the grid, right? So these are all proven concepts, and we're only getting started in this field, but it seems like a lot of cities and a lot of places are highly interested in this type of approach. So again, like a simple thing, engage in like co-digestion using the food waste and so forth, you can produce like more energy. So the more energy can be useful to your city, and it can augment some of the energy shortages also. So this is like highly relevant for developing, and I think this is extremely viable kind of option for cities like Kathmandu, Pokhara, and so forth. So when we start like developing wastewater treatment plants in Nepal, I think doing things like this is a no-brainer, and we should definitely engage in it. And the good news is, one of the wastewater treatment plants in Kathmandu, Goheshwari wastewater treatment plant, does have anaerobic digestion, and they are engaged in producing biogas. So people know it, and there is some traction around this. So slightly kind of advanced concept with biogas is you can use microbial process, microbiology that is present like everywhere, nothing like genetically modified or anything like that. And you can use the normal microbial processes to create something called biopolymers. And these biopolymers are like amazing. So you can produce like, with methane, you can produce electricity, but with methane, you can do this microbial process to produce biopolymers as well. And these biopolymers can be used as a substitute for plastic, right? Like the unsustainable plastic products, which comes from oil refining and highly unsustainable practices. So if we can replace some of these products and their product precursors with biopolymers, that's going to offset some of the environmental impacts as well. We have this opportunity to do in wastewater treatment. Industry is laser focused on finding more beneficial use of some of the carbon elements that are present in wastewater. So with that, I would like to kind of, summarize or like conclude my presentation with this slide. And this is a very interesting kind of idea, right? For the longest time, we called these, the place where the wastewater gets treated, wastewater treatment plants. And slowly the industry is moving towards calling them water resource recovery facilities. And this is highly appropriate because these waste management places have become sort of like factory for resource recoveries now, right? So if we put everything together, here's a simple like wastewater treatment facility, which is doing all these functions. So you're producing biogas. With biogas, you are producing electricity. You are heat for beneficial use. You are producing bioplastics. You are recovering phosphorus fertilizers. You are producing organic fertilizers that can be used in agricultural land. And the list goes on and on. So to call them wastewater treatment plant is not appropriate enough now, right? And so this whole idea of resource recovery is fully in place, and we know these concepts. And I'm excited as ever before to work on this field and contribute. But in general, I think we should be really thankful to the innovations and the ideas that has transformed this, right? So so it's a very exciting time when it comes to this closing the loop and doing circular economy in water. And the future is looking bright, and I'm excited to be part of that. So with that, I think I'll wrap up my presentation for today. I thank like everybody to kind of, giving your time this morning. And I look forward to the questions that you may have for me. So with that, I'll give it back to Anandji.
Thank you, Puskarji. It's a great presentation. I really enjoyed it. So seems like we have a few questions in here. Okay, give me a second here. Okay, Kiran Adhikari has a question on chat. What are the best software for modeling the wastewater treatment systems?
Oh, wow. Okay, so for modeling wastewater treatment systems, there are like, so we call them like, biological process modeling softwares, right? Because a lot of wastewater treatment revolves around using biology. So this is a biological, physical processes, right? And the biology part of it is extremely important. This biogas production that I was talking about, nutrient removal side of things, these are all done by natural biology, right? So the modeling softwares, there are plenty of them, which go into the mechanistic understanding of biological reactions. And there are several of them. I'll name a few. There is Envirosym, BioWin software, process modeling software. There is Sumo, there is GPSX. So there are a lot of these softwares, but fundamentally, at the end of the day, what they do is they allow us to model the mechanistic biological processes that happen in these systems. Okay, so what else we have?
Okay, so I didn't see any questions in there, but I have one question because I saw you have contributed in the development of standard in Nepal. Can you elaborate a little bit about that one?
Yeah, so this was a collaboration with World Health Organization. Maybe some of you know Sudan Pantizi. He's a great champion, when it comes to sanitation in Nepal. He works for World Health Organization. So we got involved on his request, and Dr. Rajendra Bhattrai, who is on the call today, by the way, and Bipin Pathak, myself, and Keshav Sarma from Australia. we all got engaged in this effort. And the effort was basically, Nepal does not have any effluent standards. So any type of engagement with treatment needs to target some sort of standard, right? There needs to be a level of treatment that is required in most of the developed countries, but Nepal didn't have wastewater effluent standards, and that means it could be different standards for different things, and you cannot have that. You need to have like one overarching standard for the entire country. And so the effort was, hey, can we look at what people around the world has done when it comes to wastewater standards, and what can we do which is equitable for Nepal? It's not like too stringent so that the cities and industries cannot follow it, but it's a practical balance between what we can do right now sustainably and also protect the environment, right? So that was the idea. There was a lot of stakeholders involved in this process. The Ministry of Environment was there, Department of Water Supply was there, and there was a lot of these stakeholder meetings that we kind of went through. Overall, it was a good exercise, and I think we developed a nice set of document. But the implementation is still like ongoing, and hopefully, that the work that we did is eventually going to produce a standard that we are all proud of. So, I hope that answers some of your questions. And
yeah, thank you very much. And I think Thakur Dhakkal has a question. Thakurji, go ahead.
Azur, thank you so much. I don't have a question, but I have a few notes. Thank you, Puskarji. हैन हजुरको प्रेजेन्टेसन एकदमै राम्रो थियो र जो तपाईसँग इन्भल्भ हुनुहुन्छ हाम्रो राजेन्द्र सर जो अहिले कलमा पनि हुनुहुन्छ, विपिन पाठकजी, सुदन पन्थीजी, केशवजी लगायत सबैजनालाई हाम्रो धेरै धेरै धन्यवाद जुन तपाईले इनिसिएटिभ सुरु गर्नु भएको छ. That's very important, and we have a lot of work and research done in developed countries which we can utilize in our developing countries. So this is the forum we share our experience and learn from there. And also तपाईले जुन अकवानको कुरा गर्नु भएको थियो त्यसमा मैले आफूले काउन्टीको तर्फबाट काम गर्ने अपर्च्युनिटी पाएको थिएँ. त्यो चाहिँ के छ भन्ने 2085 मा त्यो रिजर्भयर युजेबल गर्नको लागि they started the process in 2010, right? Like 75 years in plan. So that's what we need to do. I know that this is a great plan. We have to think about 50 years beyond today, 75 years from now, then we'll get there. So thank you so much.
Thank you for that comment. The long-term thinking should be there. Right? The Virginia Hampton Roads example is very relevant, I think. Climate change लाई पनि कसरी रिलेट गरिरहेको छ उनीहरूले. Los Angeles area को कुरा पनि त्यस्तै छ. They are thinking like at least 100 years future मा के हुन्छ भनेर. And when you do these type of activities, I think rather than being reactive, if you are proactive, you can solve a lot of environmental damages. अनि कस्तो हुन्छ भन्दाखेरि sometimes these environmental disasters are not reversible. It's too late. So let's not be too late to do some of these things in Nepal. Kathmandu is very sad right now that we have so many people, but we do not have infrastructure. But we do have the opportunity to learn from the world, use some of these highly successful technologies, low-cost technologies, and get the job done. So that's my kind of a, closing words. I would say, I would love to see Nepal go into that direction.
I think we have one more hand raised in here. Let me see.
Okay.
Rajendra Sarun.
Rajendra Bhattrai and Arvind Shrestha. Rajendra Bhattrai, sir, please go ahead.
Arvind Shrestha, उहाँलाई बोल्नु थियो उहाँले पहिला उठाउनु भएको थियो क्या हो अनि त्यसपछि म पछि बोल्नु.
Yeah, I'm Arvind. Okay. All right. Namaste सबैलाई. Thank you, Puskerji, for your presentation. Because I'm in this field too, in wastewater treatment, but it took me back to my school time when I was doing this research for DC water to remove this nitrogen from their treatment in wastewater. And but unfortunately, I wasn't too much involved in this sector than in the collection system side. But still, it's a good. You give me this flashback of my work that I have done. Thank you for that. And my one question is, when you did the presentation, you were mentioned about, rising of the sea level because of discharging this wastewater to the sea, mostly in the coastal areas, like Hampton Roads. But I've heard many years ago, in Florida, they were doing this deeper injection of wastewater. But I haven't kept track of it, But so I would like to know if you have any more, knowledge about this and how this deeper injection of wastewater is taking place, and is Hampton Road areas or coastal areas, in the US or in any countries around the world are doing this kind of measures to, reduce this, the sea level from this man-made influences, Can you give me some example?
Yeah. No, so Hampton, definitely. So you mentioned like Florida and Hampton Roads. Yeah, in Hampton Roads, that's the idea. It's going back to the Potomac aquifer, which is a huge reservoir of water, right? This is and it extends up to like Northern Virginia from Hampton Roads area. So the idea is to do the deep well injection concepts, and so that you not only diverting some of the water from the ocean and the nutrient discharges there, but at the same time you're increasing the groundwater level, right? And this increasing of groundwater level has two benefits. One is it provides you with the water security because you are reusing it. Your wells will not dry out soon. The other advantage is, the land will not subside. The land subsidence aspect of groundwater is pretty bad. And that was the example that I was trying to provide with Norfolk area, the Hampton Roads area. The floods there are getting worse and worse, because there is land is sinking, so to speak, right? So there are those two things that are solved by that. In Florida also, they are engaged in deep well injection. Also in California, in Southern California, the Los Angeles and that area, right? So this is in practice, and I think this is going to be more commonplace, in the future because it's proven, it's safe, and it's promising. So that's all I would say.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Arvind. Razdai.
Oh, thank you, Puskarji. This is an excellent presentation. I can't even express how happy I am to be, spend an hour and a half with you all. I must commend American Society of Nepali Engineers for starting this web series and starting with a bang with such a wonderful speaker. We say in Nepal, Najikko Tirtha Hela. So we think of Pusker Regmi, he's just one of our Nepali fellow engineers. No, he's not. He's a bright star of the environmental engineering field. I must say, he's one of the really brightest and smartest engineers I have worked with. So we expect great things from you, Puskarji. No pressure. No pressure.
Thank you so much for kind words, Razdai. And one thing that I must say, this presentation that I did today, a lot of these slides are from Razdai himself. And Razdai is one of those people in the world for me that I look up to the most. And, he has the path that I'm following in some ways in this field is laid out by Razdai. And he has been a true pioneer for Nepali people in this field. A lot of people in our field know Nepal because of Razdai. and I feel like privileged to follow your footsteps, Rajdai. Tremendously honored by your comments as well.
Well, thank you. Let's not overpraise each other now.
Okay, yeah. Thank you both, Raju sir and
thank you
Pusker ji as
very
well.
much.
Is there any last question? Anybody has? Okay, I'll give a count of 3. 1, 2, 3, go. So with that, we conclude this presentation. Thank you very much, Dr. Pusker. It's a wonderful presentation, very relevant for Nepal, and literally it's like everywhere, right? Either developed country or underdeveloped country or any countries in that matter. So thank you very much. And one more thing I want to highlight in here, maybe I want to request you for the audience as well, please consider to contribute either as a presenter or as a moderator. Most probably we are planning for more web series in the upcoming days. So please form a panel or do by yourself. Consider either presenting or leading this effort. We also need a moderator to moderate these sessions. Thank you very much. And have a wonderful day.
हजुर अलिकति एड गरौँ मैले हाम्रो फेसबुक लाइभमा पनि यो स्ट्रिम भएको थियो र त्यहाँ पनि धेरै मान्छेहरूले आउने जाने गरेर हेरेका छन् कतिपय अब त्यति धेरै ठुलो चाहिँ मास त्यता छैन किनभने यता अब जुन जसलाई क्रेडिट चाहिन्छ उहाँहरू यतै आउनुभयो र फेरि इन्टरेक्सन पनि यहाँ गर्न सजिलो हुन्छ उता चाहिँ वाच मात्रै गर्न पाइन्छ त्यो भएर उता चाहिँ अलिकति थोरै थियो तैपनि त्यो रेकर्डेड हामी फेसबुकमा राखिराख्छौँ हैन भइराख्छ त्यो र पछि गएर वाच पनि गर्न सकिन्छ र यहाँहरुको केही क्वेशन कन्सर्न्स भयो भने त्यहाँ कमेन्ट छोडिराख्नुस् हामी त्यसलाई एड्रेस गर्ने कोसिस गर्छौँ थ्यांक यू हजुर अब यति नै होला अब यसलाई चाहिँ इन गरौँ त
Yeah, with that, we conclude the presentation. A round of applause to our speaker and to all of our audiences in here.
हजुर मैले लाइभ स्ट्रिमलाई स्टप गरेँ है त